Live from the Washington, D.C. area, all empowered citizens need to know about intelligent use of resources, smart governance, inclusive communities, smart industry, and healthy, thriving urbanization. This is Smart Sustainability, the TV talk about shaping a sustainable future in the digital age with Nicolette DeVidar. When we're afraid to live, we often experience overproportionally a fear of death. And we're afraid of showing who we are, and often bend out of shape because of that to please others or to simply fit in. A fear of living and fear of dying are intertwined. Let me say that again. The fear of living and the fear of dying are in their root intertwined, because life and death are part of the same cycle. And this is difficult for many to come to grips with. It's a philosophical, foundational difference of how we approach life. Living life fully takes guts, lots of it in fact. By the way, this is not a reference to COVID. It is a reference to dare to be true to yourself the way you are. Daring to live is not just a saying. Truly living takes heart. It means being open to different experiences. Well, we all know experiences can be painful, sometimes very painful. It means being open to disagree, standing up for yourself, independent of what others think. It means being open to how things unfold without knowing the outcome. Yes, that too is risky. All of that is. That, by the way, is not an invitation either to do stupid things to prove something to somebody, but it is an invite to being true to all aspects of yourself and standing up for what you believe. Someone who dares to live is authentic. They're being real. They're comfortable with their emotions. And herein lies the rub. How dare they accept their thoughts, life stories, successes, and failures just as they are, or how they interpret them. It makes us vulnerable and thus uncomfortable, but courage and vulnerability go hand in hand. They're the two sides of the same coin. So why do we often get offended when someone speaks their mind? Is that a society problem? What's the inner wound that the one who dares puts their finger really on? Fact is, many people get uncomfortable when others speak their truth. It's a cultural phenomenon. The Cato Institute published a survey this summer where 62% of Americans have political views they're afraid to share. This is only pertaining to political views, that's the question. Or do we have a self-deception problem? Daring to live with guts and gusto is risky, no question. Not to dare, though, comes at a high cost. Frustration, depression, anxiety, emotional disconnect, health issues, just some of the prices we pay. The good news, more and more people are waking up to that. So, do we have to learn how to live and become real? How can we live with guts and gusto? That's our topic tonight. My guest tonight is Laura Wallace. She's CEO of Works & Company, helping women take their power back. She also hosts the Gutsy Podcast, uncovering what we often lie to ourselves about. Laura, I'm super excited to have you on Smart Sustainability on the show.
Having me.
I cannot hear you. I think we have a technical problem. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, absolutely.
I can still not hear you. We're working on this though. So just bear with us. It's a technical issue. We're working on it. Let's see. In the meantime, I've been looking up your podcast and all the topics you've been talking about, but I did want to talk with you in that first segment about the podcast itself. How did you come up with it, etc.? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Are you able to hear me?
I can still not hear you. Welcome back to Smart Sustainability. I'm Nicolette, DeVidar. Thank you so much for staying with us. We had a technical issue, which I'm sure many of you can relate to, since we live now in the Zoom and the Skype times and so on. It's just, I think most of us are zoomed out at this point. Nevertheless, I hope we have our guest, Laura Wallace, back on, and she'll be with us so we can actually talk about what the actual topic is tonight. How can we live life with guts and gusto? And let me tell you, most of us really need a lot of guts to deal with the situation and the circumstances we're all in. So there's no sugarcoating. We're all in the same boat. Thank you so much for being patient and sticking with us.
We are here. We did it.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to welcome you back to Smart Sustainability after my monologue to the camera and to the audience for quite some time. So we were talking about how you came up with the Gutsy Podcast. Now, where I lost you when we had the technical issues, those are mainly women-oriented topics, right? First of all, why did you pick up the women-related topics? Is this because you've experienced them yourself?
Oh my goodness. What I teach is what I've walked through.
So is this how you find the topics every time? Are these like simultaneously occurring incidents in your life that then prompts you to find the topics?
Yeah, they're either something that I've experienced or they're the women that I've worked with. They've experienced it.
Mm-hmm. So we got caught off before when I asked you, why is this important? Why do you think this is a message for people to hear?
So I don't know if this came through, so I'm going to repeat it. So if you heard this before, you get it again.
No, just feel free, because nothing was coming through really.
So I'm a firm believer that, we're taught that we're becoming someone. We have to shed things. We have to do things that really get us to where we want to be in life. But I believe that we are really undoing what everyone else has given us. So experiences, thoughts, feelings, all kinds of stuff. It's junk, right? Like we put it in the suitcase and then we carry it through life. And I believe that we are unpacking that suitcase to really get back to the human that we were born to be. That is where your true power lies. That is where your gutsy is.
Yeah, so you're actually jumping ahead a little bit, because I was going to ask you where the guts is later on. So what you're saying is that throughout life, we're getting all this baggage of experiences, of disappointment, certainly, of good things and bad things that we keep in the suitcase and we carry with us. But there are two components to this. So one is, how do we interpret that? So you can interpret baggage as, if I refer to your baggage allegory as something that's like good clothes, you want to take it along, and you can refer to as baggage as something that you don't need. How do you distinguish between the two?
So that's where you have to trust yourself and your own feelings. So if you're carrying things around, certainly they can be great and they can be experiences, but they can also feel heavy and not like your own. So you really have to divide and look at, does this make me feel good? Does this make me feel authentic? Does this align with who I am? Or is this going against my own grain? Is this make me feel heavy or weight down, or something that just doesn't feel right to myself?
Was there a particular turning point in your life that made you realize that it's time to do a podcast on this, or that it's time to dive into your own guts potential, so to speak?
Yeah, my very first job was designing yellow downs for the phone book. And, it was just as exciting as it sounds, and it was a great experience, and I met amazing people. But I wanted to know more about the stories, the people, the why behind business. Why are you doing this? Why are you so passionate about this? Why do you want to invest your life in making this business real? Mm-hmm. And so I developed something called the Green Couch Project, which I'm not sure if you can see. I'm actually sitting on the green couch right now. But I interviewed entrepreneurs to talk about their gutsy stories. What keeps you up at night? What makes you so excited that you can really stand yourself? What are your goals? What's your mission? And so we did that for a couple of years, and as you know, is a production. And so we moved it over into the Gutsy Podcast because the main thread that I found is that all entrepreneurs and really people have gutsy.
Yeah, but when you're an entrepreneur, you know already that you need guts. But my question would be, do you have to be an entrepreneur to actually find out that you can dig into your guts?
Not at all. I think it's our human right to know when our gutsy to really embrace who we truly are.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what guts actually means. What is a gutsy characteristic? How would you describe that to someone?
So gutsy is to each their own. I think that gutsy shows up in our lives in different areas, in different times, and in different ways. So the main way that I love to look at gutsy is when you're afraid to do something, but you choose to do it anyway. And I think it's really important to know that there's a difference between fear and gutsy. They are, kind of polar opposites, but they often walk the line together.
Yeah, because one is the door to the other, right? So I once actually read that someone had written a quote. They said, whatever it is you're afraid of, that's what you should do because there lies the victory behind. Would you second that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have kind of like this metric that I love to use to figure out, because fear plays a very important part in our life, right? Like fear keeps us safe. Fear keeps us from hurting ourselves. It keeps us from going in a direction that we should be going in. So I like to determine guts and fear. Hold on, my phone is sliding here. Is by a physical feeling. So the difference between fear and gutsy is something I call bricks and butterflies. So when you get a very low, sinking, heavy feeling in your stomach area, you're like, oh, just something doesn't feel right. That is fear telling you, pause, turn around, this is not the thing for you. When you get kind of this light, airy, buttery feeling, like butterflies are in your chest and you get so excited and you can kind of hardly stand yourself. And, sometimes you feel like you want to throw up a little bit, but, you're nervous, but you're excited. That's gutsy saying, yep, let's do it, keep going forward.
But sometimes fear also has a very positive side. So we do need fear at times to use that as a warning sign. So for example, if you know you go in an area at night alone as a woman where you probably shouldn't be going in and your stomach kind of clamps up and says you really shouldn't go there, then clearly fear has a purpose. So what's the difference? Yes, how do you differentiate between the negative side of fear and the positive side of fear when fear says, maybe my liberation lies right behind that fear?
Yeah, I think it goes back to your body. Like, where are you feeling it? Have you ever been driving home and you get this sinking feeling like you shouldn't go that direction, for instance? Or in your example, like I shouldn't go in that particular area alone. If you get a very heavy sinking feeling, that's fear keeping you safe, rightfully so.
Safe meaning within the comfort zone and saying, I don't want to venture out.
Yes. Yeah. So the other side of that is that butterfly effect, right? It's exciting, it's light, and it's airy. And it's not to say that you don't feel a little bit off in your body, but when the feeling is more positive and a little jittery, that's gutsy doing its thing.
Are women more prone to that than men?
I would think so.
Why?
Honestly, I think as women we're trained to be safe and quiet and do the thing we came here to do. And so that's really where stepping into your gutsy and taking your power back is like, we don't have to be quiet. We don't have to be still. We're fully capable of anything that any other human on the planet is.
But all of the things you mentioned, so listening to, discerning the fear that you have, knowing what you want, going for it, etc. That to me, though, that also means that you have to be at a point where you've done a lot of your homework already to be able to be in a position and say, okay, this is what I want, this is what's afraid of, and this is where I'm going. I think that a lot of people are still in this murky zone where they can't tell one from the other.
You know, it's hard to move forward sometimes because you don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, if you wait until you have all the answers, that opportunity is either going to pass you by or something else is going to get in the way. Another excuse is going to get in the way. More time is going to get in the way. The family, whatever it is. I think it's really important to know that to make a gutsy move, you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to believe enough to take one step.
So let me ask you, do you think people are born with an ability to be gutsy more so than others?
That's a really good question.
Because some people just have this drive, you know, they just feel comfortable. I'm sure you at home, you probably have experienced that too, even if you have different children or so. You probably see some of them, they just go for it. And some others, they're more hesitant and more thoughtful. Not that the others are not thoughtful, but just sort of like, you know, really, some just go for it when they have an idea, and others, they mull it over and mull it over and mull it over. So the question is, are we born with that? Or is there an even playing field where we can all learn it that way?
I honestly think that we're all born with the same amount of gutsy.
You think so?
I think that I do. Our conditions, our circumstances, our home, our upbringing, our geographical location. I mean, yes, you could have two people in the same home and one just goes for it and the other one just holds back a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think it's really, it comes down to our inner trust. And so when we embrace ourselves and you use that gutsy, some people are born naturally to go forward.
Now,
but others are a little bit more shy, and I think that's okay. Like you don't have to always be like this superhuman, like I'm strong and courageous and I have no fear. Like that's not gutsy. It's really just trusting in a voice to say, yes, this is right for me.
So listening to your inner voice and trusting yourself. Now, from your experience, you also work as a coach. Now, here in the United States, we're going really through a period where we try to get all of our communities, so African American communities, Asian communities, all the people who live in the United States, sort of united in a way to really see, are we experiencing the same thing? So from your experience, are we approaching living a gutsy life from the same sort of point of view? Or do you work with different clients actually that come from different backgrounds? What's your experience on that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that any two people on the planet are the same. So we all have our own stories. We all have our own paths.
Right.
And so you have to approach gutsy. You have to approach gutsy from where you are at this moment. So where I am today may be different where you are today, or it could be different than another woman where she is today. And so we're not all starting at the same point. Mm-hmm. We're starting at where we are right now today.
Mm-hmm. Why do so many people struggle with it?
You know, gutsy takes vulnerability. And vulnerability is often seen as a very scary thing, and rightfully so. You know, when you put yourself out there, you go against the grain, you just embrace completely who you are. Mm-hmm. People get involved. Other voices get involved. Mm-hmm. Situations and like, oh, who's she? And oh, what's she doing? And like all this jumbled up inside of your head. And so vulnerability can feel scary.
Yeah.
I also think, though, that, you know, vulnerability is a really beautiful thing. That's where the true work is. That is where really get to take your power back and embrace, again, get back to the very human that you were born to be.
I wanted to talk with you about some of the topics of your last podcast that you've made, and would like to ask you if you can give us a very brief quintessence, if you want, of the main issue of that podcast. So I liked your first one, bold, not bossy. What's the quintessence of that? So how can you be bold but not come across as bossy?
Yeah, it was such a great episode, and such a popular topic for women, because often, again, we're talking specifically about women and Gutsy in this, is that we're afraid that if we voice ourselves or ask to want or, set our parameters or set our boundaries, that we're going to be as bossy or a B word or like all these other words that we're given. And so the essence of this episode was how to really just step into your power without coming across as such a negative person or feeling, or even just like your essence.
Have you noticed, though, that a lot of people have at first sort of they step back a little bit when someone is bold and daring and goes into their power? What's your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, when you step in your power and you are bold, it can shake people, right? Like again, that's where the vulnerability comes into play. But here's the important thing, is you stepping into your power is not stopping anyone else from stepping into it. And so when you step into that, you actually give permission that other women don't actually need, but it's like this underlying unspoken permission to step into their own power.
Yeah, so that's actually very similar to when we often feel like you have to make yourself smaller to make everyone else around you feel comfortable, when in reality that makes the world a smaller place, versus it dims the light in a way, versus actually stepping up and empower others to go into their light and into their size, right?
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
The other topic I wanted to talk about, overcoming self-sabotage. What did you mean by that?
Oh my goodness. So we unintentionally do things to stop ourselves all the time. Whether it's not speaking up, or an unhealthy habit, or not eating the right way, or not drinking enough water, not showing up, you should be showing up. I've found that particularly women, because that's who I work with, tend to go, about 80% of the way. And then that last 20% is where that self-talk comes in. That's where self-sabotage comes in. And it's like, if you're trying to reach a level of success or really step into who you are, not sleeping well, not eating well, and not taking care of your health is a form of self-sabotage. So it's a way of stopping yourself from really stepping into that power zone that you really have.
Do we all do that? Are we all prone to that?
I think in some form or fashion, along our journey, and again, a lot of it's unintentional. It's very subconscious. So we do these, we step into it, but once we realize it, that's when we have to do the undoing. So the real key is to notice, like, what unhealthy habits do I have that may sabotage me to step into my power?
The audacity to do big things. And I think this is something where women, I would suspect, struggle most with.
Yes.
Is that true from your experience?
Doing big things. And I'll mention my friend, and she was a guest on the podcast, Vivian. She has the saying, do all the Chad things. So typically, men will just show up and do their thing, right? They'll ask for what they want, they ask for the raise, they ask for the promotion, they go after what they want. Not saying all of them, but in general. Women, again, we go a little bit, or we have the thought and the feeling, and then we think, oh, how's this going to affect my family? Can I really do this? Women typically don't apply for a job unless they're 100% qualified. If they're not, they just don't apply. And so that's the thing about doing like audacious things and really just stepping into it is taking all that off the table and saying, you know what, I am fully capable and I'm ready. I can step into this.
So is the actual quality of guts a more masculine energy? Because men just do it, like, as you said, you know, they just go out. Like, the job application is actually a very classic example. If women want to apply for a job, they actually find lots of reasons to talk themselves out of it because they think, oh, they're not 100% match, or they don't have all exactly the 5 bullets of those 5 pages that very often job descriptions ask for. Men, they just come in and they just send out an application and say, well, let's see if people would take me.
Yeah, I think that it takes a lot more self-convincing to step into that power, right? So Gutsy is, while we all have it, we don't all know how to use it. And especially as women, there's so many factors that we take into play that we often dismiss our own self. We step away from what we truly want to do because we're afraid of how it's going to affect other people or what are other people going to think. But what I want women to know is that you have this within you. And so many people believe in you that you don't even know believe in you.
But let me ask you something. So if this is a more masculine energy, it doesn't mean, though, that women have to behave like men. And there is the difference where I think some of us kind of miss the line, or they get kind of thrown off on both sides, so men as well as women. What is your take on that?
Absolutely. So honestly, Gutsy is just saying yes to yourself. No matter what gender, race, age, where you are, where you grew up, Gutsy is saying yes to yourself. And so what I want women to know is like to really step into it and believe in themselves. To know that they have everything that they need inside them in this moment.
So does that also negate the pleasing factor, or the desire to wanting to please someone?
You know, people pleasing is another challenge. I think that women face particularly. Men do as well. But people pleasing is really, again, just saying no to yourself. And so you can't please everyone, right? I think that we've all experienced that in some form or fashion. But when you look at your own needs first, you say, like, is this something that I can do? Is this capacity that I have? Is this a hell yes, or is this a no? That's such an important, like, gauge to use when you're trying to decide, like, how to help people. You don't have to expend yourself in order to help other people.
Okay, but I'm going to challenge this here for a second. So you can say yes, a healthy yes, or you can say a healthy hell no, but there is also a decisive maybe. So what's with the people who are in that space?
You know, that's where I truly just gauge all the time. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. I use this when I'm buying clothes at the store. You know, you put the shirt on and you're looking in the mirror and you're like, oh, I kind of like this, maybe. Maybe is not an answer. It has to be a yes or a no to protect your own energy and honestly the people around you as well.
So when we have the audacity to do big things, though, don't you think it scares most people? Have you lost friends when you decided you had the audacity of doing the Gutsy podcast?
I have lost friends. I've lost family. I've lost coworkers and employees.
Yeah.
And it's hard, right? Like this is not necessarily easy work. You know, I sit here and say like, oh, you can just do it and that's it. It takes inner work. But at the end of the day, you have you. And your journey is your journey. And you know where you want to go. And especially if you have big visions and you know where you want to go and you have just these big aspirations in life, you have to be willing to sacrifice to step into that.
And stay true to yourself.
Absolutely. You know, it can be intimidating for sure. But honestly, what other people think of you is none of your business. And honestly, a lot of times when you step into your boldness, when you step into your power, it often shines a light on insecurities that other people may be experiencing. You're on different levels. And I say that by like your linear path. Where you are maybe different than where they are. And so it's not apples to apples, but it's often seen as that. So people will back off or get intimidated by your boldness.
When you say think what other people think of you, it's none of your business. Now, a lot of people, probably also some in our audience here, could say, that sounds a bit egoistic and maybe insensitive. What would your answer be to that?
You know, I think it's always important to be mindful of the ones that support and love you the most. Absolutely. I'm not just saying like, run around and not give two craps what everyone else thinks. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to making big decisions in life, when it comes to stepping into your power or stepping into your light, if you ask everyone that you know their opinion, by the end of the day, you're not going to know what to do. You're going to be so confused that you're probably not going to make a decision. So that's what I mean by everyone else's opinions is really none of your business. You have to do what is best for you, always.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about what you just said, that when someone is bold and other people react to it, they get intimidated or they react negatively or whatsoever, it shines a light on the other person's insecurity, because I think that's very much misunderstood. What is your take on that?
So, for instance, I'm going to talk about business community because that's what I know best. Mm-hmm. If you decide to make a big move in business, or you seemingly are doing amazing, mm-hmm. if there's another business that is struggling or wants to do something that has not got to that point in their business, it could come across intimidating. They may not want to watch you. They may not want to follow you. They may not want to interact with you anymore. Mm-hmm. That's okay. There's a difference between stepping in your power and gloating, right? We're not here to be like, oh, look at me, this is all the things that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I also think it's really important that when you step into your power, that you also advise and help other people. How can you take your learning experiences and empower other people? Mm-hmm.
Another topic you said in your podcast is eliminating bullshit stories. I love that one. So let's talk about that. So are we telling ourselves BS stories more often than not?
All the time. All the
time. On what?
So my beautiful friend Dina came on and talked about this. And so bullshit stories are the things that we tell ourselves. And ultimately we talk ourselves out of things. For instance, I'm not good enough to be on this TV show today, so I'm just not going to do it. I have had that conversation in my head, but then I realized this is the time and the place, right? So we talk ourselves out of the things that are truly calling us. Those are our bullshit stories. They're the lies we tell ourselves that keep us safe.
So what would help in that at that point? A friend who would tell you stop telling yourself the BS story or talk yourself out?
One of my favorite things to do is say it out loud. In between your ears is this whole world. And it's so loud and it's chaotic and there's a lot of stuff going on in there. And it's easy to believe what's happening inside. Hmm. However, when we say it out loud, when we write it down, when we actually put it into words, it actually takes power away from that negativity.
Yeah.
Because if I sat here and said, I'm not good enough to be on the show with you today, well, that sounds silly when I say it out loud. So it's just a really simple way to take the power away from the negative stuff and give the power back to yourself.
So did you hear that? So anytime during the day, are you saying to yourself when something that creeps up and you want to talk yourself out of something that you feel deep in your heart you should be doing, you just read it out loud and you laugh at it? How does it sound? Try it out. Maybe that would help. I think it would definitely help most of us. I know I've tried it before to laugh at it. It was good advice to make the fear go away. I wanted to talk about something else. Why do you think it's so hard for us, women particularly, to be true to ourselves?
Being ourselves is scary.
Why?
It's vulnerable.
Is there social pressure to it? Are we brought up that way?
All around us. We have to take everything into a factor, right? Like our life is a recipe. There's ingredients that take like a delicious pot of soup the recipe has been passed down from generation to generation.
Yep.
You get this person puts in a little of their flair and that person puts in a little of their flair into it. Before you know it, that entire recipe has changed.
Mm-hmm.
It's your own recipe. Have you ever stopped and thought about that? Or changing that recipe completely because that one doesn't serve you anymore.
Do you think there is a connection also for women to also step into their sexual power? Do you have a problem with that? Okay. Let's hear it.
Yes. Yeah, we did a episode on that as well. You know, there's so much power within our own bodies and in our minds and what we allow ourselves and what we actually hide ourselves from.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we truly embrace who we are as beings, and that means sexual beings as well, like we scientifically are created to embrace sexual relations. But we're taught that it's taboo and we shouldn't talk about this and it's hush hush. And so we end up like putting our power, our sexual power, in a box. And so what I'm here to help encourage is let's start to open that box. When's the last time you thought about what you want? When's the last time you asked for what you want? And I think it's so incredibly like amazing and powerful that power of business and the power of sexual, embracing your sexual self are so in line that it's insane.
Some women would be very afraid of that, and I know you had actually a podcast on that one as well, the power of sexual energy in business. Let's talk about this for a little bit more. How can you bring those two together without being seen that you're using your power in a negative or manipulative way, particularly in political correct America?
Yeah, so really good question. I think, we're not talking about like putting sexual being stuff into business, right? Like let's take that off the table. But what I'm really embracing is asking for what you want and being truly who you are. So typically business is a very masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's do, check, go after this client, this deal. It's a very masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes, particularly female entrepreneurs, have a hard time coming off of that masculine energy and stepping into their feminine energy, which is softer, kinder, it's much more of a flow scenario. And so when we can really embrace our sexual energy,
Mm-hmm.
as women, we are asking and allowing that softer energy in to really our tank that allows us to do the thing that we need to do when we get back into the office.
Okay, let me give you an example. So the way you just mentioned that, what I can picture is, for example, a woman who goes in a skirt, probably, a little shorter skirt, into an office to ask for a raise. Now, I don't think that probably her boss would have an issue with that, but I can see a lot of other women having an issue with that. When she does get the raise, they would then suddenly start talking about, oh, she only got the raise because she wore a skirt. Is that true? How do you deal with that?
That I don't believe that we should use our feminine sexual power to get things. No, we're better than that. I'd like to say that. What I mean is when you embrace your own feminine energy and you just allow and you just be who you are, you naturally create a magnet to amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to wear a short skirt to get a raise.
No, I'm not suggesting that a woman is wearing a short skirt to take a raise. She probably just wore a skirt because because she feels in her power and she would like to go to the office. What I'm referring to is that very often other women are women's worst enemies when it comes to stepping into your power and asking for what you want.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I totally understand what you're saying. And yet, honestly, that kind of comes back to what other people think is none of your business. Because if you are true to yourself, you step into your power and you do your job well and you ask for what you want and you embrace your own personality, you are a magnet to success. You are a magnet to growth. You're a magnet to happiness. That's all you have to do. That is your own work.
Yeah. So Laura, we're almost out of time since we really got our time cut short here. What would be your advice to people at home to step into their power and to become more gutsy? It has to be quick.
You know, stepping into your power, again, is saying yes to yourself. So I would encourage you to look at your life, look at your business, and ask yourself, what am I shying away from? What am I not fully stepping into? What is pulling me to be more of myself? You have everything that you need. I believe in you, and I know that you can believe in you.
And of course, as we heard from you, laugh about yourself and say it out loud whenever you felt like something is holding you back, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So to find out more about Laura's podcast, she actually does have a podcast, and we will show you her webpage and also where you can find the podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry about the technical issues, but you can always check us out on Facebook.com at Smart Sustainability TV. Thank you so much. Have a good night.